He said, well, I was at his wedding.
Okay, we're live.
All right, it's 3:38. I call this meeting to order.
On the call of the roll, Member Eldon. Here. Eldon present. Member Fisher.
Present.
Fisher present. Member Wolf. Chair Wolf.
Present.
Wolf present. We have a quorum. There are no agenda changes that I know of at this time. Next on the agenda, item number 2, adoption of the minutes for the July 26, 2016 Education Outreach and Training Committee.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Moved.
Seconded.
Let's see, I guess,
Public comment.
public comment?
I wasn't here, so if there's anything
Seeing
leaking
no
out
public
here-
comment, any comments from the committee on the minutes? All right, can we take that without objection?
Yes. The matter is the minutes are adopted without objection.
Great.
Next on the agenda is item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the Education Outreach and Training Committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction but not on today's agenda. There is only one member of the Assessor Recorder's office in the room at this time. If he does not want to make any public comment, we have no public comment today.
All right.
Next on the agenda is item number 4, file number 14092, hearing on the status of the order of determination. Complaint filed by Sean Carl Mooney against the Office of the Assessor Recorder for violating Administrative Code Section 67.29 for failure to provide an index of records. To provide a little history on the matter, on February 3rd, 2016, the task force found a violation of Administrative Code 67.29 occurred for failure to provide an index of records and refer the matter to the Education Outreach and Training Committee. The task force requested the Assessor Recorder to be prepared to discuss the following issues: the records retention policy, index of records and links to it from the Assessor's Recorder's webpage, inserting information regarding how to request public records on their webpage, comparison of the type of information posted online by the California State Board of Equalization versus the San Francisco Assessor Recorder's Office. This is more of an update item, I believe. There's really no items for them to comply with at this time. It's more of an update
Okay.
of questions from the task force.
Great. So I think first the record should show that Mr. Mooney is not here right now, but we do have a representative from the Assessor Recorder's Office. If you can go ahead and approach the mic and introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon, members. My name is Edward McCaffrey from the Office of the Assessor Recorder.
Great. Thanks so much. Can you go ahead and give us a quick update on anything that's changed with the way that the index of records is dealt with, whether it be on the web or in general, since you last were in front of the task force?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. Again, Edward McCaffrey from the Office of the Assessor Recorder. The last time I was in front of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, there was a request made to our office that we would make the index of records information available to the public because it wasn't currently posted or linked. Having that conversation back in February, we have since created a link on our website, which is our website for record is www.sfassessor.com, and it is located to find the link of our index of records under the About Us / of Office of and Contact Information page. It was posted immediately following the February 2016 meeting. So that information, that link has been live for more than 9 months now.
Great. I think we should probably suspend Robert's Rules of Order and allow people to converse freely in the hearing. Does anyone have any questions or comments about where we should follow up with this item?
You said it's in the About Us?
So if you go to the About Us, and then there will be a drop-down, and then it is the office and contact information. If you click that, on that page, you will find a number of items that are also listed under file number 14092 that was asked for our office to respond to, which includes the records retention policy, the index of records, as well as inserting information on our website about how to make a Public Records Act request. So we had gone ahead and updated all of it.
Sorry, I'm not seeing, I see mission, news, annual report, fact. Is it in office and contact info?
Yep.
Oh,
And then,
I have to click again.
yeah. And you'll see.
Oh, I see it. Oh, look at that. Data request indexed. Okay. Okay, it's there.
Anyone else have any? So I do have one minor question. I'm just a little confused. You just referred to it as the index of records, and I'm not sure that the preposition actually matters, but you have it down as index to records. Do you know why the decision was made to label it as such? And the only reason I ask is that if someone were to Google for it with quotes, they might not find it based on the preposition, so I'm just curious.
Sure. I'm not, apologies if I referred to it as the incorrect way. Whatever if you click on the link and whenever it goes to, that is the correct terminology. So if there's the recommendation to adjust it on the website, because I forget how it's spelled on the website.
It's listed as index to records on the website. Traditionally, I've heard parallel types of documents being referred to as index of records.
Okay.
I had a brief conversation with Victor asking whether there was a standard or whether both are being used, and he wasn't sure at the time. I don't know whether any of my colleagues on the committee have any thoughts about that, but it was just something I noticed.
Yeah, I actually think this really is an index to the records because none of these are hot links. So I think this is just a list of all of the records of the index to these records. And if you want these, you have to contact the department or division directly using the contact information. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So it's really an index to these records that are not here right now. It's an index to them, and you're going to have to go get them yourself somewhere else or with their help.
And so in your past experience, the index of records have been live links, and that's a differentiation?
Yeah, it's slippery, but that's where my mind is going.
Sure.
I can't say whether it's correct or not, but I can buy this index to records because it is not giving any of them. I don't know. Victor would know more about this than I would.
Commonly, I hear it referred to it as index of records, but I can understand the terminology can go either way. It's index to the records. Are we taking the official terminology or common verbiage? But I have no opinion.
Great.
And it looks fine to me. It's just if I needed any of these records, I'd have to call the department, right? I'd have to call or send an email or come down.
Yeah, and the reason why is because a lot of these records are available on request. They're not in soft copy. It's really challenging to make a lot of, just to back up, we are the Office of the Assessor Recorder. A lot of our documents are in soft copy. A lot of them are also in hard copy, and so we're happy to work with people that make the request over the phone, by email, or in person if they'd like to reach out to us, which is what we've tried to do with the initial page on the office and contact information, is to make sure we have our phone number, our email address, and fax information so that people can reach out in any way possible to get what they need.
That's fair. I mean, it's like going to the building department to get some records for my house that was built in 1906. What do you mean it's not online? 1906? It wasn't that long ago. Yeah.
All right. Any other comments or questions on this item?
One last question. What is Gigi Whitley's role? Is she the records supervisor or is she the...
Sure. So she is the former deputy to the assessor recorder. We are currently updating that name on the index of records, or index to records, which will be updated as we have. It will likely be replaced with my name.
Lucky you.
So we're in the midst of updating. As I know that the city administrator who handles the Index of Records website, is suggested to all offices, all departments, I think, to review your records retention policy as well as your Index of Records on an annual basis. So we're in the midst of doing that.
Great. And Victor, are we supposed to take action on this item,
I
or?
believe the proposed motion would be to move that the assessor recorder has complied with the order of determination and to conclude the matter.
Yep.
Can I ask one semi-random question that I think is related? Are you at all connected with the building inspection?
No.
Okay, just making sure I know. It's not.
I used it as an example. It was exemplar. It was an example of when I had to get some records and I had to go to Mission Street to get them.
Yeah,
'cause
that's nice.
So would
fun.
anyone like to make that motion to mark that the order of determination has been concluded and?
Is that a motion?
The motion of the order of determination has been complied with and that the matter be concluded.
Do we have to motion that?
Yes, we have to take a final action.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Public comment.
Oh, public comment? Thanks.
Hearing none?
So weird.
Say-
Hearing none?
On that motion, Member Eldon.
Aye.
Eldon, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. The motion passes. Next on the agenda, item number 5, file number 16090, complaint filed by Sean Mooney against the Assessor Recorder's Office for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.21 for failure to respond to a public records request in a timely and complete manner. I don't know if you want to hear the history on this matter, but
I think it actually is worth summarizing the history, both for the record and in terms of how best to deal with this matter.
Mr. Mooney previously filed a request for public records for 2014 and 2015 records, and he filed a complaint regarding that under previous file numbers. The Assessor Recorder has been working with Mr. Mooney for over a year to get him those records. At the last meeting of the committee, Mr. Mooney attempted to expand his request for records to include 2016, and he was informed that he would need to file an additional complaint as he could not include new items into an old complaint. He did do so. The Assessor Recorder has been working for the last couple of months to try to get the records to him. And I did receive an email recently from Mr. Mooney saying that he has recently, within the last few days, received all the records he has requested for 2016 and that he would not appear at today's meeting. However, he still would like us to proceed regarding the timeliness of the complaint.
Great. I think, again, it makes sense to suspend Robert's Rules of Order for this sort of informal conference to determine how we should recommend the task force move forward on this complaint. I guess the easiest thing to approach is the timeliness issue. So the complainant has said that the complaint wasn't, or that his records request wasn't responded to within the timelines governed by the Sunshine Ordinance. Do you have a response to that assertion?
Of course. So, members of the committee, my name is Edward McCaffrey with the Office of the Assessor Recorder, and I have been in front of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force a number of times over the last year on issues related to Mr. Mooney's requests, and we have had, I think myself and Mr. Mooney we've had a great dialogue around how to make sure we clarify the requests that are coming into our office, as well as determine and identify policies and procedures internally within our office to make sure we get him the information sooner. And stepping back, he did make requests for 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016 data. Over the last year, we have satisfied those requests. And I think the item at hand is the period of time within him making the request and our office satisfying the request. And in the last few months, I would say last 4 or 5 months, I have deliberately made sure to include the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force on a lot of my communication to Mr. Mooney to make sure that there's a good track record that shows that we're working diligently to try to improve the period of time between the request and our satisfaction of that. And I think an example of that is starting in September, and I'd love to lay it out because these were a lot of the communications that the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force was included on. That is an example of us working hard to try to improve it. And so on September 7th, our office received the PRA from Mr. Mooney with 2 requests. On October 5th, so that was about a month later, and in between that time, I had indicated to Mr. Mooney that we needed more time to satisfy the request. October 5th, our office responded directly to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force with Mr. Mooney included on the email with a summary of the status satisfying one of those requests from September 7th, saying that the other one was in progress. November 3rd, we followed up, so another month later, in the meantime indicating to Mr. Mooney that we needed additional time. Our office responded to Mr. Mooney as well as to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force that the second component of that request made on September 7th was satisfied. So honestly, it did take a month for the first request and then another month for the second request because we had to take them individually. I will say in prior requests that Mr. Mooney has made, it has taken more than a month. I will explain that in a minute. So I think that that's shown improvement. And then Mr. Mooney actually made a request on November 5th asking us for additional information, and we satisfied that on November 16th. So from November 5th to November 16th, we took it to 8 days. So I think what we are showing is that we're continuing to, like I said, identify those procedures, those processes to continue to eliminate and cut down on the time between him making the request and us satisfying it. That speaks to the window of time. I want to also speak to the content. The content that Mr. Mooney is looking for does take time for our staff to review it. And so that is what initially was taking a lot of our, that's what delaying the process. We, as I have explained in the past, we do have an old, outdated property tax system that doesn't run reports as easily or as, I think, nicely as we would like it to. And so it does take time from staff's work to pull the data, to review the data, to have the city attorney then review the data, and then for us to put it in a format that is usable and reviewable for the taxpayer. And so in the beginning, it was a challenging process because we were kind of figuring out how it works. We have since figured that out. We have since identified like I said, a policy and procedure to make sure that we handle it quicker so that we can cut down on that time for Mr. Mooney and for other taxpayers in general. And I think our work over the last 3 or 4 months have shown that we have diligently tried to do this and that I think we've been successful, but of course there's always going to be room for improvement.
And moving forward in the future, do you see it being possible to maintain the 10-day allowance provided by the Sunshine Ordinance?
I think we're gonna try our best to do so. I think a lot of it consists of what the request looks like, simply because if the request comes in with hundreds of, and to go drill down a little bit into what we're looking at here, Mr. Mooney was specifically looking for permit information for specific businesses or parcels in the city. And so that takes time to identify which parcels those are, identify which permits those are, to then pull that information, to kind of cull through it, and then obviously, like I said, have the city attorney. So Mr. Mooney's request, we have asked to have him condense those requests from hundreds to tens to 20 to 30, and he has been great in satisfying that request from our side, and because of that, it's allowed us to respond quicker. So I think we have gotten into a good place, and when I say we, I mean Mr. Mooney and the Office of the Assessor Recorder, to ensure that we keep a strong communication line open and that the request is clear and it is specific in what he's looking for so that there is less confusion on our side when we're asking staff to do the necessary research and document assembly when it's time to do the homework.
Great. I mean, it sounds like you've been able to work with Mr. Moody as well as like streamline the process to whatever is possible. But even that said, it sounds like this still is a multi-step process to get public information to members of the public. And I'm curious whether there's, a long-term strategy, 3-5 years down the road, to make this a one-step process or to make it all available online, and what that, if it exists, looks like at this point.
Sure, absolutely. So I think the goal is absolutely to have a lot of our information online. The thing is for us to always remember is that a lot of the information that we hold in our office is actually private information. So not all of it is just publicly available. And what we have been working to do, and what Assessor Recorder Carmen Chu has spearhead, is to make sure as much information that we have available we have in our office is made available online. An example of that is our website. We currently have roll information, property information for each single parcel in the city, and there are over 208,000 parcels. And we have information on each of those parcels that consists of bedrooms, square footage, number of bathrooms, all those types of characteristics to make each parcel unique. What we have done over the last year is make sure we get that information onto our website in a downloadable format for the taxpayers to use at their convenience. That information is downloadable. It's on our website. It's under the About Us page, and there is a tag that is data. That data includes information, our roll data, from 2008 to 2016. So that includes all property information that we have that we can make publicly available to the public at the click of a few buttons. That is an example of progress that we've made in the last 6 months to 12 months, and there are more initiatives like that we're working on to bring more information to the public to make it easier. So I think that's an indication of us trying to work towards that goal of making sure as much information is made public. In the meantime, trying to make sure that we review the data and the information that we're making public to ensure privacy for taxpayers.
Thank you. Any questions from my fellow committee members?
Yeah.
All right, you can go ahead and take a seat. I guess we're going to discuss this briefly. You're welcome to stay for that. I don't anticipate any more questions. However, if you want to observe or not, feel free. So, Victor, I think we need a motion for what our recommendation is to the task force on this file. Is that?
Yes, I would believe that you would make a motion to send this forward to the full task force with a recommendation. I assume the recommendation, there is a violation, but maybe say a few words about the statements made today and your feelings on that. Maybe acknowledge, just as an example, a motion to find that a violation of 67.21 did occur, and acknowledge that the assessor recorder has taken steps to improve the process and so forth. Or something to that effect. It's your recommendation, whatever you want to say.
Didn't we hear it, and then it came here, and now we're sending it back
this is the
again?
first time this is heard.
Oh.
And then right now, the way that the process works is it clear whether Mr. Mooney intends to attend a?
He will be informed of the date of the hearing, and he will be requested to appear, but it's still his choice whether or not.
And under our current procedures, if he chooses not to appear, notifies us that he won't appear, what is our?
It's still in the hands of the task force unless he withdraws.
Okay, thanks.
And also a part of that motion would be to find jurisdiction.
All right. Is there anyone prepared to make such a motion right now?
I don't know, I'm still, the rule of reason is rolling around in my head right now. It just seemed like it was way beyond the request seemed really, I mean, is this true, Eddie, that it's a really voluminous request? I mean, you gave the number of days and time and everything, so I don't want to go after them and say, hey, you were late, when this request was really either violating the rule of reason or bumping right up against it.
If I may, Edward McCaffrey, Office of the Assessor Recorder. Again, it was a voluminous request. It was outside of what we typically do receive. And so due to that, and it was the first of its kind when it was initially submitted to us. And so it was going to take longer than that period of time. We did communicate to Mr. Mooney at the time of this initial complaint that it was going to take more time. And so we did do the best of our ability. And then that complaint rolled into a number of other requests that Mr. Mooney had made. And so we did the best that we could on that initial request of Mr. Mooney's. And we have since then, like I stated, made sure to continue to improve.
I guess this is a question for Victor or my fellow committee members. Is anyone aware of a situation where the rule of reason or any sort of voluminous nature of the request overcame or the legal mechanism that would overcome a 6721 violation? Because I'm not seeing how that's...
It has occurred in the past, however, it has to be, they would need to bring up that case and prove it, that it is a voluminous request. And I believe we've had the discussion during our full task force meetings regarding our procedures and previous cases where the rule of reason did come up, in which we would want the respondent to provide evidence that it is an unreasonable request in terms of real life data. How many hours would it take you to complete this task and so forth before the task force can make a decision. But I don't believe the respondent has brought up that in this case.
No, he didn't. The one I was thinking of was one we had 2 months ago with one of the supervisors who
That would
came
be
in and said,
Supervisor Peskin's office.
that would be the one who said, I'm not doing this, bye, and walked out the door.
And I will say, I have indicated in communication to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force in the past, in my letters, emails also to Mr. Mooney, we've indicated the amount of time that initial request took from staff as well as city attorney, and it compiled an analysis from hours that indicated that it was a pretty lengthy request. So.
Any thoughts, Member Eldon?
I mean, there's generally a process where you tell the complainant that it's going to take longer. It's like the 15
I don't believe there's, besides the single extension, I don't believe there's any provision that allows you to take an extreme amount of time to comply. However, that's where the rule of reason comes in, and there's no specific guidelines for applying the rule of reason.
So, I mean, that kind of makes me feel like we just got to send this back to the full task force to be like, do you personally feel, I mean, if it's kind of this subjective feeling of what is the rule of reason, the feeling of reason? Well,
I don't believe we should get into
Yeah, I don't
ideals.
think we
We
should do that.
should just rule on the specific case and
We
the details of this.
we have to send this to the full task force no matter what. We could send it with no recommendation. We could send it with a recommendation. The way I see it is that
It's 21B if he's complaining about the 10 days.
it seems to me that the procedures have since been refined to a place that it's possible to meet that 10-day requirement. This seems like a sort of inconsequential violation, sort of like the parking ticket I got the other day or something like that. We're not going to refer it to ethics, certainly, or anything like that. And so that's where I'm coming from. But if people feel more comfortable without a recommendation and referring it to the task force with no recommendation, I certainly can empathize with that as well.
I prefer to send it with a recommendation because otherwise the task force is going to spend 35 minutes discussing it. So let's just call it what it is. It's 21, what is it, B, right? 10 days. And we've all agreed that we didn't get in with the 10 days, correct? And we can add a line in there of Mr. McCaffrey has told us what he's doing and he's working towards it and that we really don't think we need to take any further action and we all move on.
And we find
With the-
jurisdiction.
With the finger wagging of, now, don't let this happen again, young man. Yeah. And we find jurisdiction, yes.
I mean, well, given the past cases, I suppose Mr.
The mic down.
McCaffrey and company could show sort of their paper trail of trying to follow the.
I think he's done that.
And given that we've had other people say, like, here's why it took so long, and use that as the,
No, I think he's just going to take the violation on the chin and be a grown up about it.
Happy to take the violation. I will say there was a communication to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force on October 5th, which indicated in detail with an appendix that outlined the communication between myself and Mr. Mooney around trying to satisfy a more recent request and that sort of thing to show improvement. So I'm happy to kind of provide additional documentation if that is what would be helpful. But again, I think we at the Office of the Assessor Recorder, and I speak on behalf of Assessor Recorder Carmen Chu, understand that we were in violation. We are trying to work diligently to improve, to make sure we satisfy requests at a quicker time in the future. Right.
Great. Thank you.
So was that a motion that you had made previously?
Sure, isn't that what we agreed on?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay.
Any public comment? Seeing
I
none?
want to make sure that Victor got all that. 6721B recommendation. Can we kind of say, but we don't need to spend 45 minutes discussing this. The recommendation is that the respondent
I will
has
be summarizing-
taken corrective. You've got it, Victor, yeah.
I will summarize that it's a motion to find a violation and acknowledge that the assessor recorder has taken steps to improve it, and they don't anticipate additional problems with lateness as they have good communication skills with the complainant to make sure that I will
I think
go
you've
in
got
those
it.
lines.
Yeah.
And I will provide a copy of the summary to the chair prior to sending it to the task force.
Right.
On that motion, Member Eldon.
Aye.
Eldon, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. The motion passes. Before Mr. McCaffrey leaves, we are sending this to the full task force for a hearing. And just a check on your availability to attend that meeting is the first Wednesday of the month. Are you available either on January the, that would either be January the 4th or February the 1st.
I will be available on both days, so whatever is convenient and pleases the Sunshine Task Force, happy to make it work.
Okay, I will provide notice to both yourself and the complainant once the Chair Bruce Wolf has set the agenda. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Next on the agenda, item number 6, file number 15020, hearing, Policies and Procedures Guide, how to respond to requests for public records. To provide a history on this item, I believe that former member Pilpil and Vice Chair Hyland were in the process of working on a guide that we could possibly give to departments to give them some hints on how to properly respond to public records request. I believe there's a draft from former member Pilpil in the attachments. Chair Hyland was trying to move it more into a checklist format that was simple for the departments to look at. And, did we do this yet? Did we do this? I don't know if you would like to continue on their former work, or if you would like to go in a new direction. That it's your choice.
Well, this is all, I'm just seeing all the verbiage. Was there a checklist? Oh,
A checklist was never created. It was the farthest we got was former Pilpil's letter trying to just provide advice to the department. It was a draft.
Do we have a sense that departments are in want of said checklist?
Some departments are. I do receive calls occasionally saying they want to know what the task force is looking for in some occasions, in that they're responding. They want to be sure that they're not violating the ordinance, and they're looking for advice from the task force, because sometimes they do respond, but they do not respond in a format that the task force approves of, or something to that effect. Just to let you know, Chair Bruce Wolf, his advice was to tell them to read the ordinance and comply with it. So I don't know if there's a specific direction that you're looking for, or is this something that you believe would be useful to departments to help them respond in a timely manner?
But I guess more specifically, have you heard from any departments that they would like a checklist instead of a memorandum?
They haven't asked for one over the other, but they are looking for guidance from the task force.
Great.
Especially for certain extreme cases. I don't know if you remember cases where there was one respondent who filed many requests throughout the city that were extreme and ranting and so forth. And several departments actually applied the rule of reason to this person, and the task force agreed with it. And they're looking at extremes as well as the everyday circumstances. How do you deal with vexatious requesters and so forth?
Okay.
It's not in here, is it?
It's referenced in the very end, but in a way that doesn't actually add anything to the conversation.
I mean, at this point, is this just a solution looking for a problem? I love that expression.
You could.
I mean, I remember when David went down this path, and I remember thinking at the time that, that was a really good idea. But that was like almost a year ago, January 12th. And things have changed, and I don't know, maybe I think departments are almost getting smarter about this. Is this something we really need, right? Is this something that you want to put your time in? You specifically? Cause
it's the task force's time, man.
But you're the one that ends up doing all the grunt work.
I guess, I kind of feel like this is, there are reasons this could be good, but it also sort of looks like a pet project of a past administration.
I feel that way, too.
I remember I remember this, and I remember thinking, yeah, go for it. It's a great idea, but
right, but
the
maybe
the sponsor of this is no longer with us anymore, so it's sort of lost some.
Yeah.
Well, when you say it that way, it sounds like he's departed, but
He's no longer on the.
he's no longer serving on the task
No longer
force.
serving on the task force.
He's still with us. He's
I
still
just-
a city
I
resident.
just spoke to him yesterday. So maybe it's lost a little bit of the.
And, and there's a problem with creating a checklist or guidance, in that if they follow it and something still goes wrong, they will say that this is the advice you provided to us. And
That's a really good point. I never thought of that. Can we table this and just kick it down the road a little bit?
I mean, we only meet every other month. I don't think we should just table it without at least figuring out what we want to do with it. We don't need to actually determine, we don't need to, if we're going to do work on this document or we're going to construct a checklist, we don't need to do that today. But I think we should come out of this item with whether we're tabling it for good or what we're planning to do at our next meeting about it. It seems like in some ways we're writing the counterpoint to whatever the Good Government Guide says about Public Records Act or sunshine requests. And Victor, you didn't include the Good Government Guides.
I did not.
Are you familiar with it enough to know whether there's anything that we would want to address as a counterbalance?
I haven't reviewed the Good Government Guide in in a while. But I believe we should be independent of that, as the task force does not acknowledge it as an accurate guide.
I mean, I was not in any way, I was certainly saying we should be independent of it, but if there's any things that are objectionable around, like, this can be our opportunity to basically punch holes in problems with the Good Government Guide, which would still serve as an independent document, but
That wasn't the direction the previous version of the EOTC was going in. They didn't even mention the Good Government Guide when they were discussing this. But that may be a project that we can take up instead, in that to review the Good Government Guide in regard to this, and maybe provide advice to the city attorney of what we think they should change, or something to that effect.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the
That's-
issue.
yeah.
I'm very interested to see what former member Pilpel's checklist had that corresponded with.
I don't think it's ever
This-
was made, so.
Okay.
A
it's
checklist was never
right?
made.
Okay.
It was
That's
just,
All right.
so just Pilpel was just this document in front of us. That's what he wrote.
yes, based on several meetings before EOTC, before he drafted that.
I mean, I guess like if Pilpel really feels strongly about this, maybe he can come and talk to us about it, or like send us an email detailing why we should.
I mean, he did put a lot of time into it.
What's the matter of, does the committee believe that is worth their effort to create advice to the city departments? Or will that backfire on us?
It kind of feels like a good project for once we clear through the backlog of all of the
Yeah.
other things that we're doing.
I mean, I went
Like-
through and like was prepared to cross out a bunch of lines of this document and approve it. But there's a bunch of stuff in here that seems to me that it's like overly prescriptive, and I don't know where the source of that is. Like what times they should check the email. I don't know where that came from.
That came from Mr. Pelpel.
Right, and so I don't think it's the place of the Sunshine Task Force or its former members to dictate when people should check their email. At the same time, like, I'm not sure in what Member Fish was saying, is this a solution in want of a problem? And so I'd be inclined to want to, at a future point, review what the Good Government Guide says about public records requests. If there's some sort of problematic piece of information there, then maybe we should be doing some sort of messaging to combat that, to sort of set the record straight, if you will. If there's nothing problematic in that section of the Good Government Guide, and this may be a solution in want of a problem, I think we should just table the whole thing to avoid all of these issues and the additional work on it. But I don't know where my fellow committee members sit on that.
I sit in the same place as you,
Which is where
tabling it.
I was the one that said tabling it.
Oh,
You said
well.
not kicking it down the road 2 more months.
No, I said.
Oh, you're saying
tabling
killing
it is tabling it.
Tabling it is killing it.
Right.
I just hate to kill something.
It could always
Can
be.
we put it on life support and then
You
maybe
could always
revive it
reintroduce
later?
it in a different format.
There you
and
go.
I prefer the term dormancy.
We can
Dormancy?
table this matter,
Going-
and if
it's going
you want to
dormant.
bring it back up into a future date, you can introduce a new hearing.
I like Member Eldon's, so let's just have it go dormant for now.
The document is waiting for whenever the task force would like to revisit the matter.
Yep.
I mean, we can always like.
We've done that with the ERA for how many years now? 50?
Yeah, but that's actually. I mean, I think we should consider the matter closed, and we can always resurrect Pilpel's language if we want to use it by referencing the former file.
Yes.
Like, in terms of a housekeeping matter, I think that unless it's sounding less and less like people want to move forward on it and more like we want to keep it in hibernation. And that, I don't think, is a good course of action.
Okay.
Would you like to make a motion to table the matter?
I'll make a motion. Wait, can I make a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to table the file.
I'm not seconding it. I don't want it. I don't want to kill it. I just want it to go dormant for a while. I just wanted to say that we'll revisit it in the future.
I'll second.
Well, I didn't make that motion yet.
You did.
Oh, he
I
did.
did.
Oh. Okay.
I just don't.
Well, let's go to the vote then.
I don't have any I mean,
I don't. You know
The
what?
issue can always be brought up again in the future.
yeah, that's the way I feel.
Fine.
There's
All
no
right.
such thing as killing it.
Okay. I'll go along with it. I'll go 3-0 then.
There are no members of the public in the room, and it is time for public comment. On the motion, I believe there is no objection, so the motion to table the matter is adopted without objection. Next on the agenda is item number 7, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items, and pending calendar by members of the Education Outreach and Training Committee. Just going through the list of items listed as pending issues, there are 3 items on this list that were referred to the EOTC as more of an educational item. The complaints were heard, violations were found. However, the chair at that time referred it to the EOTC with requests that we review certain issues and come up with solutions. I have spoken with Chair Wolf regarding this matter, and I believe it would be advisable that I contact these complainants to see if we can close out these files and open up hearing files to discuss the issue at large, as the complaint itself is not relevant to the specific issue. I don't know if I'm making myself clear on that point.
Were you guys understanding that?
I have no idea.
Let me
Just
give you
looking
an
at-
example.
Victor, when you
looking
said
up right
Chair
now.
Wolf, were you referring to me or Chair Bruce Wolf?
Yourself.
Okay, because I've talked to Chair Bruce Wolf about it, and he was not necessarily of the same mind. So
I spoke with him briefly yesterday on the matter, but no action is taken yet. I haven't drafted any letters. I will consult with both of you before I send any letters out.
okay,
But just for an example, regarding file 16036, the department, the State Legislative Committee, failed to post an agenda in a timely manner 72 hours before the meeting. It was referred to this committee to have a discussion about developing policies for all boards and commissions to be sure that they post their agendas in a timely manner. It's not specific to the State Legislative Committee, but more of an overall educational piece to develop something like an advice letter to all boards, commissions, and so forth. That is where we're coming from. The complaint has essentially been settled, and the violation was found, but it was sent to EOTC for educational purposes, which is why are we bringing this complainant back to talk about the educational portion once, as the complaint was already issued, or the violation was already issued. So that's just an informational piece. I'll be talking to both Chair Josh Wolf and Chair Bruce Wolf to see how they want to proceed with these. But the last time we scheduled one of these for hearing, both parties were very confused as to what they were supposed to do to participate in it, how they were supposed to participate, as their portion was completed.
I too am confused as to how we are supposed to participate.
Yes.
what are you asking?
What do you want to do with this?
This is, at this time, is for informational purposes.
Yeah, if nothing.
My proposal to Chair Bruce Wolf and to Chair Josh Wolf was to contact the complainant, let them know that we are opening up additional files to discuss the the larger issue and to close out these complaint files.
Right. I think another way to look at it is that, like, we resolve the case and the complainant says, you know, this wasn't included in the minutes or the agenda wasn't posted in time. And we solve it. We say there was a violation and then it's been referred to EOTC. Now the complainant is still attached to that hearing, but the complainant probably has nothing to do with the actual thing going on. And in some cases, these are systemic problems that are affecting multiple departments. And so really it seems like we should open a new file that doesn't have the complainant's name directly attached. It would still reference that old case, and potentially call like different departments in to deal with the posting agendas ahead of time. If we have multiple departments that are flagging on that issue, then we'd call them all together and would be a new item as opposed to carrying on this old item that really has been dealt with 3 months ago now. Does that speak to it in a way that Victor didn't?
A lot clearer than the way I put it. And we have ones that are even older. We have them going back to 2014.
So does anyone have any concerns about that approach of sort of closing the old file and opening new ones on the issues as opposed to sustaining the file?
Do you have any other recommendations for how to handle the?
The only other option would be to call these back to this committee for hearing. But when we do that, we would request the original complainant and the original respondent to appear, which is not.
I like Chair Wolf's suggestion.
Great. Thanks. We don't need to vote on this, so.
It's just informational. And I believe the biggest part, that Chair Wolf is future agenda items.
So are there other things in addition to what we have on this list, which is a somewhat significant list of elements that people would either like to see the EOTC in general take on, or specific issues that you would like to address through your role on the EOTC?
Yeah, I would like to try to talk with more city departments to see if they can start just automatically uploading more of their data about their operations to the SF data site. And potentially that way allowing people who might right now be filing sunshine requests to just go to the site and find the information they're looking for without having to file anything.
And do you have a process you'd like to take to engage in that work?
In past years, they, from what I think Bruce Wolf has said, that they have had meetings with city IT personnel. They have gone to various other meetings and talked to people. I don't know how recent those efforts were, and in recent years, the city has set up a chief information officer, chief technology officer, like these sorts of offices. In my day job, I've talked to Joy Bonagro, I think is her name, and the city actually has a lot of really interesting, talented people working on sort of the open data projects, and it feels like we're sort of blindly working towards the same goals without really being aware of each other, using very different processes. And I think like at least having an initial conversation with, I think Jay Nath is the most senior administrator working on this, to say like, here's what the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force does. Here's what we know you guys are doing. How can we work together more? And I mean, we were talking about this checklist that PillPill had come up with, but it would be cool to have like I'm brainstorming here, right? But having like suggestions for city departments of like, if you upload these kinds of information in an automated manner to the internet and make it public, you can just point people to those instead of having to process all these sunshine requests. and then that will save everyone time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea, and it's something that I've been also echoing at every opportunity during my tenure on the task force. I guess where I'm less clear on is, do we want to do that through a series of meetings that are not like that we schedule with department heads, or do we want to do this through the public hearing process of the task force? Like there's two different ways that we can nexus with people. And then finally, do we want to have like an info session with this group to sort of come up with the starting point that we're then like using as the guide through those meetings, or do we need to have informational meetings with others before we can build that initial draft?
I mean, we cannot do this electronically at all, right? These have to be in-person meetings that we have.
We can't not have a quorum of this committee meeting outside outside of open session.
Right.
If you want to have one-on-ones as individual members with,
I mean, we couldn't do email-based discussion with like JNath and people, could we? I mean,
one person could, but
Okay.
not the entirety of this.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm scared about meetings and scheduling meetings, and pretty soon it'll be 6 months from now and nothing will have happened. So, like, I guess.
One person can, but can't that whole process actually work by using you as the agent, Victor? So everyone sends emails to you, and then you distribute them?
That gets to be borderline if we're actually
almost seriatim.
discussing. You know, everything I have is open to the public, but that just becomes borderline seriatim. Just because I have it doesn't mean it's not a meeting not being conducted.
What if we talked about this with the full task force and appointed one person to handle the correspondence with the chief
I
technology
believe
officer?
there's a meeting at the Compliance and Amendments Committee on January the 9th, in which Joy, you mentioned her name, will be attending to give a presentation regarding the posting AB, I believe, 2583, where they're allowed to post information online. However, you're still required to provide the information if it's requested in a paper format. It's a similar thread to what we're talking about right now, about posting additional information online. If you have additional questions, I'll be happy to send them to Joy, and then maybe she can provide her response on the record during that meeting, and that can be a starting point.
So our next meeting with this group is February, right?
I believe so.
So, tentatively speaking, based on what happens in that meeting, I think it might make sense for this group to essentially come up with a series of bullet points or an outline as to what that would look like, which can then be the guide to whatever process, whether we appoint one person to handle all correspondence, or we decide to have a hearing. Like we can start with a single page sort of white paper that we can then use to flush out. And so we can make an agenda item for February's meeting to construct such a document. Is that a legitimate approach to this, Victor?
This document would be an outline of a hearing request.
I mean, like, in past city councils that I've covered, not so much San Francisco, they'd call these study sessions. I don't really know why that term was used, but it seems to be the one that was used for these. And so, like, basically it would be a discussion where we identify priorities in terms of moving to a digital-first policy, basically, is what we're talking about, to facilitate documents becoming available without a gatekeeper. And the purpose of this group meeting would be to sort of come up with that first pass, which we could then use to build the plan as to how we're going to implement it, whether that's through hearings or a single person corresponding with department chairs or the task force as a whole, or whatever other methods might exist that I didn't just name off.
I don't see any issues with that.
Okay. Does that sound good to everyone else?
So I'm assuming that you're going to develop this document and talk about it at our next meeting, or are you going to work on this document prior to?
I mean, I guess anyone that wants to submit communications about where they're at on this concept we just talked about can do so up to, what, 2 weeks before?
Approximately a week before.
A week before our February hearing, and then each of those, any submissions would go into the
I will create a file for this.
the
Yes.
file for this discussion item. So that gives us a first pass opportunity. If anyone wants to reach out to city officials about this on a one-to-one basis, they can include that communication into this file as well, so that we can sort of start the process of getting to a final, I'm not going to say solution, a final a final outcome that meets everyone's needs.
From my understanding, the members would provide notes to me to create an outline of how to proceed, if I'm summarizing it correctly.
Essentially, because the best way for us to communicate across one another is to put things into the file, which then renders it into the discussion as a public record.
Yes.
So if anyone has a starting point, whether it's questions or an idea of how this could work or best practices or research they found, and they send it to Victor, then Victor will be able to compile all of that. And the end result of this point should be some sort of single-page document saying, like, it is the aim of the EOTC of the Sunshine Task Force to put forward policies to make documents accessible without human intervention. This is what we've identified as ways to do that, hurdles, possible timelines, and then we can take that document as the sort of blueprint towards actually implementing this in one way or another.
I guess the question for me is, like, I have some thoughts, but I am by no means an expert on processes here. You probably have some more experience. You might have more experience. And Dave Mass might also have a lot of experience. So while I really like this idea and I want to push it forward, I'm not sure, like, who the right person is to kick off the...
Well, that's exactly why I've created this process, so that you can do whatever work you feel and are able to before February of sending out emails or writing some notes down yourself or anything, and just zip that all up together and send it to Victor. And same thing with any other task force member. We can actually mention this in January's task force meeting, which would then allow the public to contribute thoughts that they have as well, and then we'll end up with a series of...
So just so I understand the procedure correctly, Dave, I guess, as soon as he can access the fact that this meeting occurred and we talked about this, like, can we communicate with him directly to say, hey, Dave, do you want to work on this? Or do we have to do some other process to try to get him?
I mean, I think that you can just email Dave directly, but there might be some reasons that it's better to CC Victor through all that communication, just in order to keep the public record of the public inside the city, so that no one's actually having you to dig through your emails directly. Should you get public record requested on this?
And then I would like to suggest that we could probably invite, if we can find out or determine who may be the best person in the city to address this issue. I believe that Joy would be a good person. I I forget her last name. If she may want to attend that February meeting to help us get on track. She seems to be very involved with the online process.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So my understanding is that I will be creating a file for this item. All members are invited to submit any suggestions to me, which I will include into that file. Once I can send an email to all the members advising them what our intention is and ask them for any submissions that they would like to provide to me.
Great.
If that's how you want me to proceed.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think that the cleanest language is probably maximizing the number of public records available online.
Maximizing maximum number of records.
Member Eldon, does that seem to square within what your vision? Cool. Is there any other, are we solid on that item, Victor, at this point?
Yes,
Okay.
I will create the hearing title and I will distribute it among the members of the task force.
Are there any other pursuits in this committee that people would like to see us take on in the next year ahead?
There are some older ones listed. I don't know if you would like to still pursue those.
I think that the issue of how the city uses Yammer, and it probably should say social media platforms and not devices, but that whole issue of things beyond email continues and will continue to be something that needs to get sorted out. Victor, what are we doing with what is the EOTC need to do with 14047?
That is the same situation we talked about at the beginning of this meeting, where it's a larger issue based on a single complaint. I believe we need to go back to the page 2, file number 15013. Hearing, improving the hearing process of boards and commissions to ensure that a representative portion of the public is allowed to provide input by setting specific times for discussion and public comment. This came about in regards to a presentation by, I believe, a former college student trying to change the way the planning department scheduled the hearing items to be sure that the public would be able to arrive at a specific time to hear certain complaints. And this was a matter of interest from the file number over a year ago, but we've never taken any additional action. They had suggestions such as setting a specific time for each item to start, and once that time limit has expired, even if they haven't finished it, to continue that item to a future agenda, things of that nature. And again, this is the previous iteration of the task force. I don't know if you would like to continue any of their requests for hearings.
I mean, I'm a little confused as to how that actually qualifies under the purview of the task force, because we're not talking about our meetings, right? Or are we talking about our meetings?
They were trying to set guidelines for all boards and commissions.
Right. Like, we can do that for the Sunshine Task Force and come up with policies, but I'm not sure how requiring other commissions to table items when they end the timeline.
It's your choice on how to proceed. If you don't want to discuss this item, we can just...
So my fellow members, does this seem like something that we should pursue or something that we should set aside for another day?
I would prefer to set aside.
I agree.
All right. We will not
pursue
that with any priority.
The next one on the list is 15044. This is Just to provide a summary, there was a complaint against the public library in that they would not allow members of the public to use their audiovisual equipment.
Oh, I vividly remember this one.
And then this was, they gave various reasons in that the building was, where they meet, was not easily accessible by members of the public, and so they would take presentations from people scheduled to appear, such as departments, and they would use audiovisual for those people, but they would not allow people from the public to come in without notice and use the audiovisual equipment. And I believe that the task force found a violation. However, the Ethics Commission was on the other side of that issue, but that's the nature of this hearing request.
So, Victor, is it possible for you to find out whether or not that situation is ongoing without actually disrupting the hornet's nest?
They brought in their building structural managers and so forth. They said they couldn't do it.
I mean, I vividly remember this one because it was one of the few times that, I'm going to restate that since I'm not on the microphone. I vividly remember this one, and I remember thinking it was a bit of a specious argument on the part of the library, saying that, oh, we've got to plow through, how many feet of concrete to put it. And I'm like, it's a thumb drive. You shove it in the computer. Oh, we're worried about viruses. And I mean, they were just finding any reason they could to not do this. And I vividly remember the complainants, going on and on about how this was violating his First Amendment and et cetera, et cetera. And we came back and said, come on, library, what's this really about? Make a way to make this happen. And that's why I remember I voted it as a violation, even though it really wasn't. And ethics came back and said, letter of the law, it's not a violation, and they shot it down, and I don't think there's anything more we can do about this.
Any thoughts, Member Eldon?
It was snarky, I thought, but this is one of those instances, and I used to say this all the time when I was chair of the Sunshine Ordinance, it was one of those times where the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, and if I were queen for the day, I would change it, but it checked off all the boxes on Sunshine Ordinance and legitimately, officially was not really a violation. And we've had several of those. Steve Cava.
It doesn't look like a sunshine issue in one respect. However, the task force was interested in trying to find a way to get the public library to give equal access to all members of the public as well as the departments.
I remember the case, and I do think there is a sunshine argument around it, but we're in a position where it's worked its way through the ethics. The ethics made a subjective decision. It wasn't really a legal decision. The people involved could have taken it to the next level after being rejected by ethics and filed a lawsuit over it. They have not chose to do so as far as I'm aware. But again, I guess my question is, do you have a sense of, is this either a problem in other committees, or is this just the library? And is it something that's still going on? And do you have the ability to figure that out without turning it into something that's now still going on, whereas it had been dead before?
As far as I know, they're still meeting in the same room. I don't believe that any other boards, commissions have this issue because if they meet in City Hall, the building takes care of it. It's a matter of they could find another meeting room, or I'm just not sure how far.
Okay. It doesn't seem like there's a push to prioritize that amongst my colleagues, so I think we should keep it on the horizon, but sort of put it on the back burner.
If it comes up again, we'll be ready to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think there's anything we can do about it.
That's the only thing left on my list. Is there anything else that the committee would like to work on this year?
I feel like between the social media thing and getting more stuff online by default, we've got our hands full with only 6 meetings in a year.
Yes, and I don't believe you'll get a lot of referrals regarding orders of determinations from the full task force, as those should be going to Compliance and Amendments Committee. You will get 1 or 2 new complaints to review on occasion as the complaint committee overflows. A couple of them will come to this committee for review. So we have 2 issues. Would you like me to treat the issue regarding the social media platforms in the same way? Send an email to the members and ask them for their opinion, advice, and so forth?
I mean, I think that one we're premature to be sending out an inquiry. What we need at this point is, and I don't know what the best way to do this is, but there's the obvious ones, right? Yammer is less obvious, but there's like Facebook, Twitter. Does any departments use Snapchat in the city? Does anyone know?
Are we talking about public social platforms, or are we talking
These are
about
internal.
private
Well,
workflow
Yammer is an internal communications, but each of these platforms that's outside of email or print, like each of these new platforms creates new public records issues that aren't clearly figured out. So obviously Donald Trump is not part of San Francisco's government, but Donald Trump makes a tweet that says one thing, he deletes it and makes a new tweet. Now, is that old tweet a public record? Like, he's currently acting sort of as a private individual, but the same parallel issues could have come up with the San Francisco Police Department erasing a tweet, and I don't feel that these issues have been thoroughly looked at. Now, Member Eldon, are you suggesting that we should make this 2 issues, one internal messaging and another social media?
I guess I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter for the purposes of coming up with like policies. I guess I'm just thinking through, like, there's some difference in nature between like internal administrative communication on Slack or whatever versus like the police department tweeting about crimes, right? Like, I mean, it's all online information, sure, but it's like they have different purposes, different people managing them. I don't know. Maybe those are considerations. Maybe they're not. Maybe one policy for all online.
I mean, I think we may need like to look at each software provider, each software platform, and it's the way that it operates as we go through it. It may not be possible to do this with a broad stroke because they don't actually function the same. Like,
True.
Like if the city is using Snapchat to communicate, I don't know how the heck to like rationalize that with the Sunshine Ordinance. It doesn't make sense. It's problematic. Twitter's a lot less problematic by its nature. I don't know the best way to bite into this apple because it's one of these, like, we don't know how big the apple even is.
I don't even know which piece of fruit they're using. Wasn't there something, you'd want to know about this, that there was some platform where it disappears? Not
That's
Vine.
Snapchat.
Was
Oh,
it-
they-
There's a Signal.
No, there was something.
It was neither of those.
Telegram.
Yes, it was
Yeah,
Telegram
it
that
was
they were
something
using.
that a few of the Board of Supervisors were using.
That was funny. I guess for me, it's like we're not gonna. There are an unknown number of apps built by third parties out there that it's possible for city departments to use. I think my preference would be to like start trying to craft something that's like a best practice of like preserving information that would cover any online platform, and like we can make exceptions when we encounter one like Snapchat that's built differently. but I would like, I'd rather start out with an assumption we sort of stick to for everything and then like deal with, you know, the anomalies.
And maybe in that consideration, you can consider making suggestions for an amendment to the charter, to the administrative code to actually change the Sunshine Ordinance to include this type of information in it. I'm suggesting that maybe an amendment to the Sunshine Ordinance itself is in order regarding this.
That sounds good. I'm inclined to think that the first steps of this is to have some sort of a hearing. I guess we can go with the people are free to essentially submit communications or evidence that they find on this issue going into it. But to have a hearing, and I don't know what city employees it might make sense to invite, but to really get sort of an understanding of how these technologies are being used within the city. And I don't have any idea.
We could probably start with Joy again, and she can reference us to other people, as she is appears to be one of the people responsible for a lot of this information.
That sounds good, and we'll have the same person for those two items, so that'll make that easy.
And I will also suggest that we copy the Department of Technology on all of this, and they can assign someone if they would like.
I think actually requesting that if there's anyone from the Department of Technology that can come, like being a little bit more inviting as opposed to passive on that one would be great.
We will, I believe David German would be the person at DT to invite.
Great.
He will also be at that meeting on the January 9th.
Sounds wonderful. All right. Is there anything else to discuss, guys? And gal? Guy and gal?
You are.
Me?
Yes.
We make it to go?
Yes. Would you like, that completes the agenda for today. Next on the agenda is item number 8, adjournment.
Do we need a motion, or do I just adjourn?
First of all, I'd just like to say there's no member of the public in the room, so there's no public comment for the previous item. And I believe Chair Bruce Wolf would usually state, by a rise of a vote, we can adjourn this meeting without objection.
All right.
Sure.
We adjourn this meeting by a rise of the vote. We adjourn this meeting without
We
objection.
can just adjourn the meeting without objection.
All right. Adjourned without objection. Without objection.